First thing you're going to do is remove the stock through axle from your bike. Take the through axle, compare it to your Robert axle. You want to make sure that the thread pitches are the same. So take the two axles and engage the threads and make sure that they line up perfectly. Then also compare the overall length of the axles to make sure that the axle shafts are the same length. So we're going to take a 4mm Allen wrench, loosen up the bolt holding on what we call the bobbins. So we're going to take these off, move them over to the Robert axle end. Make sure you keep the narrow spacing towards the axle and the fatter spacer to the outside. Take the stock hardware. I like to use blue RTV silicone gasket maker, but you can also use blue Loctite. But whatever you do, be sure and put something on here to make sure that these don't come loose and that you lose these in the field. That would be a real bummer. Take a 5mm Allen wrench, put it through the through hole in the axle end, 4mm again, and just tighten these up and make sure they're good and snug. Then repeat on the other side. Take some grease, apply a little bit to the threads and to the shaft. Put a little bit of that in there. Now you're ready to install the through axle. Hand tighten, just engage the threads by hand. Once it's snug, use a 5mm Allen key, insert through the cross hole, use the Allen key as a lever, and tighten to the equivalent of 12 Newton meters. Do not over tighten. Okay, now we're going to install the Robert axle end onto the drive side of the bike. We supply a washer, the axle end. Be sure you have the bobbins already installed. Thread the washer over the axle end. Hand thread into the axle. Snug it up to the frame. You want to make sure that the axle end is flush with the frame and fully supported by the frame. That provides the strength for the axle end, that there's no space between the axle end and the frame. Take a 5mm Allen key, insert it into the axle end, and then just snug this up. This just needs to be the equivalent of 6 Newton meters. We're just holding the axle end to the frame. We're not holding the wheel in here. Do not over tighten.